This What's Working with Cam Marston podcast is brought to you courtesy of Michelob Ultra Beer.
They say consistency is the key to success. They weren't wrong. So how about grabbing a beer that's consistently smooth, consistently refreshing, and consistently light? You might just find that the road to success can be pretty enjoyable. Michelob Ultra, the perfect balance of taste and refreshment, and only 2.6 carbs and 95 calories. It's only worth it if you enjoy it. Enjoy responsibly. Anheuser-Busch Michelob Ultra Light Beer, St. Louis, Missouri.
Welcome, everyone, to What's Working. Thanks for joining us. I'm Cam Marston. What's Working is brought to you by the Alabama Center for Real Estate, housed in the Culverhouse College of Business at the University of Alabama. It's the show designed to introduce you to workplace, workforce, and marketplace trends that are shaping the workplace, the workforce, and the marketplace around us. I try to find guests that have a story to tell, that have a lesson that they can teach, so that when we listen to their lesson, when we listen to their story, there's something that we can grasp and apply to our own lives, our own workplace, our own whatever, and make ourselves just a little bit better at whatever it is that we do. Again, everyone, welcome. Thanks for joining in. And I want to reemphasize hello and welcome to my new listeners in Tuscaloosa and Gadsden, in Tuscaloosa on WRTR. Thank you for listening. Thanks you for joining along. And in Gadsden, WAAX. Again, thank you for being there. I got a call not long ago from Tanya Hart Little. She and I have a story of connecting many years ago when she worked for GE. She was instrumental in shaping the trajectory of my business. I guess there's probably half a dozen people that have truly impacted the trajectory of my work. Tanya would definitely be in that list, and that's a story perhaps for later in the show. But she and I were talking about an upcoming presentation that I'll be doing for her and her colleagues later this week in Dallas. And in that conversation, she said a number of things in reference to the relationship with her business partner. Her business partner is Allison Johnston Frizzo. And Tanya is a baby boomer. Allison is a millennial. Many of the days and nights, and I just got off the road working with two other groups talking about this very thing, many days are spent on the road in the seminars trying to teach the baby boomers what they need to know and what they need to do to best engage their millennial workforce. So let's clarify that real quick. We got the baby boom generation. Younger than the baby boom generation is called Generation X, of which I am a member, and younger still than Generation Xers are the millennials. You've certainly heard of these terminologies. The boomers generally, not always, but generally are going to be the parents of the millennials. Nevertheless, when I heard Tanya talking about the way her workplace functions and what she does, Tanya, the baby boomer, what she does to support her millennial employees, I realized that Tanya got it. I realized that the lessons that I've been trying to teach for years now, Tanya, whether she learned them from me or somewhere else, got it. And she had begun applying them into her workplace. And one of the things that Tanya is not saying that so many of my boomer clients do say is, what's wrong with kids these days? How do we get these kids to work? Am I being am I a victim of quiet quitting? Where's the motivation? Where's all the kind of stuff that one generation has complained about the other for years? Tanya wasn't saying. Why? She got it. And when I heard Tanya saying this, I said, hey, Tanya, Allison, I'd love to have you as a guest on the show. Let me hear you too talk about your relationship and how, Tanya, you stumbled into this, how, Allison, perhaps you coached her into this or whatever it may be. People need to hear this success formula. When we get back from break, I'll have Tanya and Allison on the line, folks. You're going to hear the way it should work. And it's a treat. It's really a treat after all the work I do to find two that really get it. You're listening to What's Working. Find us online. Find this episode at what'sworkingcam.com. We'll be right back after this break. You're listening to What's Working, brought to you by the Alabama Center for Real Estate and the Culver House College of Business at the University of Alabama.
When making the largest investment choice in most families' financial portfolio, you need a realtor who truly understands the market and can negotiate favorable terms and conditions. I'm Angelo DiPaola, the Coastal Connection with eXp Realty, the preferred real estate advisor for buying or selling along the Gulf Coast. For full access to the MLS in Mobile, Baldwin County, Pensacola, Destin, or Panama City, just Google Angelo DiPaola, the Coastal Connection.
We're back. You're listening to What's Working. I'm Cam Marston. What's Working is brought to you by the Alabama Center for Real Estate, housed in the Culver House College of Business, all housed at the University of Alabama. On the line with an old friend and a new friend, Tanya Hart Little and Allison Johnston Frizzo are on the line with me. They're commercial brokers out of Dallas, Texas, the Big D in Texas. All Texans have this swagger to them. All Texans have this kind of this hidden boast about them. And I'm not even going to try to introduce them. I'm going to let them introduce themselves and do the Texas swagger, Texas boast. Tanya, tell us a little bit about yourself and your company, and then Allison, you're up next.
Hi, Cam. Thanks so much for the time and letting us talk a little bit about our next generation company of commercial real estate executives and brokers here in Dallas. We are really excited. Allison and I met many, many years ago, probably 12 years ago, in a mentoring relationship where we have spent quite a bit of time in the real estate profession, but also just being in two totally different generations, have had an opportunity to grow together, and they're now business partners. So we're really excited about that. My background has been in commercial real estate debt primarily over the years, as well as brokerage, but for the most part working for banks and institutions and developers. So that's kind of a little bit of where I've come from, and Allison can tell you a little bit about where her background.
Allison, go ahead.
Thank you, Cam. It's an honor to be here today. And my background is commercial leasing and tenant representation. I actually specialize in office leasing and tenant representation, but as of late, when launching Hart Commercial last year, we've kind of broadened our horizons and gotten into some industrial, medical, retail, and some even investment sales of commercial properties. And it's been neat because the evolution of COVID has brought about a lot of change, not just in the office sector, but in the industrial and medical and retail sectors as well. So it's been a great platform to pivot and create this next generation of leaders and professionals in the commercial real estate industry, which goes back many decades here in Dallas to the early inception where Trammell Crow, if you're a Dallas native or a Texan, you know of Trammell Crow, really started the commercial real estate world here in Dallas, and it's evolved over the years. And Tanya and I came together last year really to create a platform that was different and unique, and it was a middle market brokerage firm with that next generation of leaders that we really want to build up and grow. So almost a year in, we've had a lot of great success so far, and we're really looking forward to the future.
And Allison, you have an Auburn connection. Tell us quickly about that before we get into the content.
I know I'm not supposed to say it, but War Eagle. I am an Auburn grad, a very proud Auburn grad. Sorry to all the Bama fans out there, but I graduated from Auburn in 2009 with a concentration in finance and came back to Dallas during the last recession. Not really by choice, but this is where I'm from. And I'm actually so glad I did because I can't imagine ever leaving. But Auburn is near and dear to my heart, and I am really excited to go back for the Penn State game the weekend of the 17th.
I didn't go to Alabama. I went to Tulane, but I'm an Alabama fan. Both my parents went to Alabama. I was an Alabama fan in utero. But here's the truth. There have been more Auburn graduates on this show over the 230 some odd shows than there have been Alabama fans. And I would almost be willing to bet at a 2-to-1 ratio. So whatever's going on
I like
there.
to hear that.
Yeah. It's tough to admit. But whatever you guys have going on there in the Plains seems to be pushing them towards the microphones for my show for whatever reason. Now, let's reset. Let's talk about why we are on the air together today, the three of us. We have talked so I'm coming to Dallas in a couple of weeks to deliver a presentation to the group that you all have pulled together. And one of the issues that you have identified is getting the younger generation, and I'm using air quotes here because getting the millennials and the youngest members of the millennials and perhaps even Gen Z into productive positions and working hard in the workplace. And Tanya, you started this relationship with Allison in a mentoring environment. And it was in our conversation that you said some things that I thought, this woman has figured it out. This woman has embraced the teachings that I've been trying to give without even knowing about the teachings I've been trying to give. You have created, Tanya, an industrious workforce in many of the younger generations that you employ. Talk to me about how you found this recipe, and recognize the past 2 or 3 shows we've had have been talking to the experts about what to expect out of the next generation. You're on the other side. You've done it. You've found the recipe. Talk to me about how you discovered the recipe of engaging the next generation in the workplace.
Well, I appreciate that, Kim. I can tell you, first of all, I have a 28-year-old daughter, so I do have someone that's constantly preaching, if you will, in my ear about the next generation and kind of where they stand. But I have to tell you, I've had a love for passing on, if you will, experience, maybe imparting some wisdom to the next generation. And I really have learned so much from them and really, truly have a passion for seeing them grow that a lot of my peers don't necessarily maybe have the same characteristics or the look that I do as far as what the upcoming generations have to bring to the table. But I have found it to be something that we and myself as a baby boomer need to not only embrace, but also learn how to cultivate the best of that talent and bring it into the workplace today for kind of the future, even past my generation. And when I retire, we need these new, bright people to be there for the decision makers of today. And we're finding that to be very true. They think differently, they work differently, but a lot of that I think is very, very good. And a lot of them, I feel like just, have the talent and the strength that needs to be recognized in the workplace that sometimes is not recognized today.
So the complaints that I get from employers, and this has been going on for a little while. The complaints I get from employers is not loyal, don't want to work hard, this quiet quitting trend that we're seeing out there. And Allison, maybe I can get you to comment on that in your peer group in a moment. The next generation just doesn't want to work. And as I've said in several of the past episodes, I think they've been saying this for generations now. The next generation doesn't want to work, but it seems to be a little bit more acute this time. And they're pointing at the pandemic and the stipends, the loans, et cetera, given out by the federal government in the pandemic that has weaned this generation, they say, to figure out how not to work, or they just don't want to do it. And you found that to be absolutely patently untrue, haven't you?
Pretty much. And I think it has, there's 2 sides to that, right? Well, number one, we raised them. So I'm not really sure who to put the blame on but myself if that was the case. But secondly, I absolutely believe that there's an understanding of the way they look at things differently than the way we look at things that brings their strengths to our strengths and weaknesses and vice versa. So I think, yes, are there boomers that are lazy? Are there millennials that are lazy? Are there Gen Z that are lazy? Yeah, I'm sure there are plenty of them. But there are also very, very talented young people that need to be heard and not categorized into this mold that their generation has been labeled.
So give me an example, if you will, Tanya. I'm sorry to interrupt. Give me an example of the way you see something one way and Allison may see something a different way, and you found these different perspectives beneficial to your business, to your client, et cetera.
Absolutely. One of the things is the way we market. There is no doubt that the generations past my generation are much more tech savvy. That is how they relate. That is how they work very well. And a lot of times I've taken a step back to look at some of the things that I, number one, wouldn't even have thought of, much less been able to execute the way that they can. And just watching those work in the market, getting the feedback from our clients, from our peers about how that's really working and how they're excited to see what's coming up just brings a totally different view that I wouldn't have known to implement. And so finding those things that how they work and how they think and using them as a positive to me has been priceless. And I've told some of my peers that have called and asked about it that I've said, you don't need a big budget necessarily. You need someone that has a vision and you're listening to them and you're employing that out in your business and in the marketplace.
Allison, jump in here. What do you want to say at this point? What is your feedback at this point?
It's true. When we put our heads together last year and wanted to create a fresh, unconventional, kind of a new trend of a brokerage firm that just doesn't really exist in this, what you could probably say is it's still a pretty archaic industry relative to other industries, especially with technology. And what we decided to do was the best and most effective marketing is social media, and it's free, right? Unless you want to pay for ad space. So we really tried to elevate our social media game right out of the gate. And I am an older millennial. I can say that because there are younger millennials and then Gen Zs that work here at the office, and I definitely feel my age sometimes. But I think for us, what we found to make a big impact right out of the gate was just putting out good content, viable content, fresh, trendy, and something that you're not seeing in how we market properties and how we use analytics, whether that be on Instagram or on LinkedIn, and how we're basically not only promoting ourselves, but promoting our clients and the properties that we lease and getting more eyes on it. And, you know, that's paying off in dividends just from having people learn and hear about what we've got working on. I mean, in Dallas, it's much like Atlanta. It's a huge city. There's a lot of office property. There's a lot of retail property. How do you get in front of people, especially in the commercial real estate industry, who are going to be representing those clients? And we found that through social media and having a really fun, new kind of effective website and messaging has been so beneficial.
Let's move into the break real quick. I want to come back and talk about, Tanya, what you didn't say is the extraordinary amount of humility you had to have to embrace this change. And Allison, I want to hear what it felt like when you found somebody who was willing to say, hey, why don't you take the lead on this thing, as you were given a lot of leash to do some good stuff. And I think we can pick it up there, because I know there are people listening going, how do I figure this out? How do I get my team to engage the way the two of you have figured out how to engage? You're listening to What's Working. I'm Cam Marston. It's brought to you by the Alabama Center for Real Estate at the Culverhouse College of Business, all housed at the University of Alabama. We'll be right back.
They say consistency is the key to success. They weren't wrong. So how about grabbing a beer that's consistently smooth, consistently refreshing, and consistently light? You might just find that the road to success can be pretty enjoyable. Michelob Ultra, the perfect balance of taste and refreshment, and only 2.6 carbs and 95 calories. It's only worth it if you enjoy it. Enjoy responsibly. Anheuser-Busch Michelob Ultra Light Beer, St. Louis, Missouri.
We're back. You're listening to What's Working. I'm Cam Marston. On the line with Tanya Hart Little and Allison Johnston Frizzo. They're both in Dallas, commercial brokers working for Hart Commercial. And Tanya's company that she began or relaunched, if I'm reading this correctly, about in 2021. Lots of crazy things going on there. What's Working is brought to you by the Alabama Center for Real Estate and the Culverhouse College of Business, all housed at the University of Alabama. Tanya, prior to the break, I mentioned the humility it must have taken for a baby boomer who has been in this business for a long time and has done some great things. Your bio here is full of accolades. To take a deep breath and show an extraordinary amount of humility and say, though this young lady hasn't been in the industry as long as I have, doesn't have the scars and the battle scars and all that I have, I'm going to give her an extraordinary opportunity and amount of responsibility because I think she knows things that I don't. Talk to me about that's a remarkable approach that you took. Talk to me a little bit about that.
Well, I wish I could say, Cam, that it was as direct as you just put it. But I think where I gained humility was really starting the first business that I had prior to launching Hart Commercial with Allison. And there's nothing that will give you humility like owning your own business, running your own business, and going through the peaks and valleys that come with that. And so luckily, along that road, I started out of the recession, and one of the first people that I did meet was Allison. And so there were a lot of things that went with that humility, and it was also just getting to know the next generation through mentoring, and then really getting an appreciation of kind of their thoughts and their feelings and kind of, their side of the story that wasn't often, talked about with my friends and my peers. So I think that's kind of how it kind of came through the years. But I will say that when Allison and I started this company, number one, we both have a great deal of respect for one another and our backgrounds. And so I think that there was already a strong relationship, obviously, that ensued. But we both believe in a lot of the same things, even though we're from different generations. We believe in teamwork. We believe in having a seat at the table and having other people within the organizations be able to voice their opinions. It may not mean that all opinions are 100% implemented, but at least they're taken into consideration without any really negativity. We want people to feel empowered to be a part of this organization and feel like a team. And I think that's really helped us not only where we are today, but in such a short time, but also attract talent. We still have a long way to go, but we've certainly got further in the last year than I did in the first 2 years of starting my own business. And I attribute a lot of that to Allison and the teams, teaching me things that I probably wouldn't have known or done myself. So I think that's the clue.
You shared values. It sounds like you shared some very important values that are necessary to build a business. You gave up some control, in a sense, to turn some of these decisions over to a younger generation who, like I said a moment ago, maybe hadn't the scars and the battle scars and all that kind of stuff. Allison, when you started to sense that, when did you sense that something was different here?
I think when we had our conversations early on about this platform and what we wanted it to look like, Tanya was very much open to my suggestions and me to hers. And honestly, launching a business, even in your mid-30s, is not an easy feat, and it's not for the faint of heart. And so I commend her that she's doing this for a second time, because I can't say I would be doing the same. But to have her expertise and to have her insight at the table, along with our different way of thinking and doing business, because the way it's been done for so long hasn't really changed a whole lot. And there's a strong desire, especially within my generation and the generation below me and the generation, behind them, that it's going to be essential that we evolve and adapt. And so, the reality these days is quality of life, health, and well-being are actually top priorities for employees, even above salary. And I read that in a recent article that, improving the quality of life is the number one reason people quit their jobs today. And so it makes it imperative that you have a platform that's going to allow somebody to still have that quality of life, but also feel valued and feel like they're here for a reason and they're appreciated. And I think that's the problem. And yes, I am a millennial. I did get plenty of participation trophies when I competed in something, even when I didn't come in for second or third. And yes, that might have been my parents and the baby boomers' fault for setting us up like that. But what I found is when my value is realized by an employer, I want to work as hard as I can, and I want to be loyal to that employer. And so having, evolved through some different companies over, my last decade plus in the industry, I took all the great things about the companies that I had been at and then took some of the things that I'd rather have done without. And we basically brainstormed and put together a platform that really touched on all the important things. And we're really cognizant about not doing the things that haven't worked. And I think that's what's made this an attractive platform to my generation and younger generations is they know their value is going to be realized. They know they're going to have a seat at the table, and they know that they're going to have the support of the very top.
So let me take us back through history real quick, because let me see if I can do this. Since the Industrial Revolution, it's been the senior people in the workplace, whether that be the factory or the office, who through their time in the workplace has given them the expertise to know how to do things, whether that be, again, in the Industrial Revolution, manufacture things, or in the today's more traditional office work environment, know the processes. And we have been talking for years about, one of these, the senior generation with their wisdom, because of that wisdom, the younger generations will have to kind of work for them, curry favor to them. And we've been talking, and I've been talking in my seminar work that Tanya, I know you're familiar with, that, hey, it's flipped. It's going to change for the first time ever. And it began with technology. The youth know this better than the senior people. I don't care how long you've been in this business. The youth know how to build, back in the day, a website. The youth know how to network the computers together. And it began that the youth became much more influential in the workplace than the senior people. And everybody said, yes, this is going to happen. This is going to change. But they did their best, and this is the Cam Marston opinion, to hold on to the bones of the workplace so that the senior people still had power and control because of what they did and knew. However, today, and it's accelerated post-pandemic, the flip, I think, has happened. That the youth are making buying decisions in your marketplace. They are influencers in your marketplace. And the senior people, for all their weathered and battle scars and all this kind of stuff, are slowly coming to realize that, hey, the youth have control here. They didn't used to so much prior to the pandemic, but now on the other side of the pandemic, they're quiet quitting. They're making buying decisions. And Tanya, you seem to have figured this out before any of my other clients have, that the role in your workplace today is no longer to say, let me tell you how things get done around here because I've been here longer than you, but what can I do to support you, next generation, so that you can attract your peer group as both clients and employees? And the flip has happened, and you have figured it out. Give me some feedback on that, Tanya.
I think you're exactly right. I do. I think I couldn't have said it any better. I'm at an age that I'm giving back, and giving back also means giving back in the workplace. And so I see my role at Hart Commercial much more about using my wisdom for positive for those that are younger than me, especially where maybe I've made opportunities happen, or potentially might know someone in my peer group that might maybe be more receptive to me meeting, and getting business. But sometimes it's just giving them wisdom of what not to do.
Yeah.
The learnings of things that I did that in hindsight might have been better executed a different way. And I think for that, I am looking to them to say, how do we do it now? Because I know they're much more peer-to-peer, and they're going to know what their peers need to say yes to that buying decision, whether it's our service or another service out there. And I see it every single day. I think if you can get confident in where you are in life, then you can embrace kind of this change, this generational change. And it's really an amazing thing.
Oh,
it's amazing to watch. It's amazing to see. It's amazing to embrace. And it's successful.
I love it, Tanya. I love it. Allison, when we come back from break, I want to talk to you a little bit more about your perspective on these things, how you're perhaps trying to coach your peers in different companies, different positions in their life. Maybe we'll touch on the quiet quitting thing. I know that's mostly the younger millennials, but maybe you can offer us some insight. And I'd love your 2 bits on what's going to happen to all the office space as people are working at home. I'll tell you about a conversation I had with the CEO of a Fortune 5 of a publicly traded company. I don't know whether they're Fortune 500 or not, and the decision he made. Sound good, Allison? You're up after the break.
Looking forward to it.
All right. You're listening to What's Working. I'm Cam Marston, on the line with Tanya Hart Little, Allison Johnston Frizzo. They're in Dallas in the commercial broker world, and they figured something out that I haven't yet found, and I wanted them on the show. We'll be right back after this break. What's Working is brought to you by the Alabama Center for Real Estate at the Culver House College of Business at the University of Alabama.
Is paying a real estate agent worth the money? I'm Angelo DiPaola, the Coastal Connection with eXp Realty. Great real estate agents are like the best doctors. They listen deeply, make your goals their own, stay current on trends that impact your decisions, and have experience navigating unexpected situations. We help our clients make the best real estate decisions along the Gulf Coast. Google me, Angelo DiPaola, the Coastal Connection.
We're back. You're listening to What's Working. I'm Cam Marston. What's Working is brought to you by the Alabama Center for Real Estate, housed in the Culver House College of Business, all housed at the University of Alabama. You can hear the tone of my voice. I'm very excited by what I've been hearing with the 2 ladies that I'm on the phone with, Tanya Hart Little and Allison Johnston Frizzo. They're commercial brokers with Hart Commercial in Dallas, Texas, and they're on to something. They figured something out that I have been both looking for in the workplace as well as that I've been preaching in the other business that I have of the seminar business. And when I heard them talking about it, I'm like, oh gosh, we got to get you guys on. Let people know that this is possible. Allison, prior to the break, I was listening to Tanya. She had, and I continue to come back to this word, a big dose of humility to go through what she did. It was a come to Jesus moment, and full of humility, in which she said, I think there's greater opportunity if I change up things. And you've said this in the interview thus far, your business model, not your business model, but your business sector of commercial realty is not known for quick embraces of change. Is that safe to say?
It is. It has been notoriously a pretty kind of old school way of thinking.
Yeah.
And so there was definitely room for change, which is what we saw the potential for relaunching Hart Commercial really to do, to bring about that change.
When you're talking with your peers and colleagues who may be complaining about some of the things that we've talked about that are not going on in your workplace, but going on in a more traditional workplace, are they asking you advice? Or are you able to give them advice? Are you able to offer perspective? What are you telling them about your workplace?
I think I probably have been asked a handful of times. 12 years ago when I first got in the commercial real estate industry in Dallas, I got together with some female peers because there wasn't really a platform or a space for us to network. It was always, I would go to these events and I'd be one female of 50 males, and not knocking the men out there, but it was in a very intimidating environment early on getting started. And then building a network, there are a lot of men that have been in networking groups and lead groups for decades. And so trying to create that for myself and build my network was kind of challenging. So as time evolved, I got together with more and more female peers, and we launched an organization in 2012 called Ladies in Commercial Real Estate. And since then, we started with about 30 of us. We've grown to over 700.
Good Lord, 700? That's remarkable.
Thank you. It's been fun. It's been work, but it's been well worth it. And now I'm kind of on the older end of that organization. It was mostly females in their 20s and 30s, but with a focus on mentorship. And so we would always bring in seasoned females, like Tanya was one of our very first speakers. And then she actually helped us launch a mentorship platform. And I think we've had to date over 50 young females mentored through that platform by Tanya and various other females that have signed up. So it's been really neat to see that evolution, and that in itself has brought some great change in the industry. But I do think there's still change to be had. And for us, what we've realized is when you can give especially younger, more green commercial real estate brokers a platform to be heard and be seen and to learn, in turn, they will bring that much more value and loyalty to you. And granted, we're still a year in, but I think that will continue to be the case, and that's what will help work for us. Well,
let me ask you something here. What do you think, Allison, about the pay your dues attitude? Now, that's something that has been a part of the workplace since the Industrial Revolution, I guess. So when someone says pay your dues in relation to the workplace, what do you think?
So I think that's a pretty old school way of thinking. I definitely don't think you should be coming right in and getting all kinds of hands out and being propelled to the top right away. I think it does require hard work and a drive. And if you have that, I think in turn and in time, hard work always pays off. That's what my parents always told me growing up. And, they always taught us not to expect things to be handed to us. You have to go out there and make it happen. But I think when you do find people that have that mentality, then there should be opportunity for them within that platform to get to the top or to get to reach their goals. And I don't think it necessarily has to take decades to get there.
Yeah.
And to Tanya's earlier point, I actually worked at a company in the past where I was in tune with the technology. I was utilizing it daily. I was getting out there and being effective. And I ended up replacing the person that was continuing to do things the way that they had done it for, 2 decades longer than I had. And I propelled to their position or was, promoted to their position in probably a fraction of the time that it took them to get there. And so not that I demanded it or, required it. It was just the value that employer saw in what I was bringing to the table versus what the other person was bringing to the table. And they were complacent and I was hungry and ready to go. So I think that kind of speaks to the fact that you can achieve success and you can achieve it at a younger age if you're bringing the value and you've got the motivation to get there.
Let's put on a different hat real quick. commercial real estate, office space, work from home. This guy that I was talking to from a company out based in Pasadena, a publicly traded company, looked at the performance of the company after the work from the return to work conversation began to happen. He looked at the performance of the company, saw that all the numbers had been hit. They had exceeded their goal in this work from home environment, and he sent out a memo and said, "We will not ask anyone to come back to the workplace. If we've done this well in a time of crisis working from home, we're not asking you to come back." And he was lauded, and his people loved him, and there are people that are choosing to come back. But what it's left is an extraordinary amount of office space across the nation that will no longer be habituated by this company and their employees. What are you seeing in the return to work, and what is it doing to office space?
So I read an article recently that cited that 60% of office workers expect a hybrid work model, but 55% already have one. And I think the majority of companies are always going to need an office. We just opened an office in January. And to me, I can't imagine growing a company and creating a culture and creating synergy and being effective in our line of work. I don't know how it would work if we didn't have an office. And we are millennials and Gen Zs.
Yeah.
And Tanya.
Allison, that's a baby boomer comment. We got to get together to perpetuate the culture. There are plenty of millennials out there rolling their eyes going, culture schmulcher.
And I'm a millennial.
Yes.
So you heard it here first. And, for me, and I think for so many others, face-to-face interactions are essential for almost everybody. And the role of the office is really a crucial hub for human interaction and innovation. So I think you're gonna have your big corporations that are trying to shed space because they are going to a hybrid model. Maybe half their employees no longer have a dedicated workspace. They now switch to a hoteling model. But I think you're still having that many more companies. And from what I'm seeing in the office leasing world and the tenant representation world is there are that many more companies like us, case in point, that were a product of COVID. And these are companies that are growing at exponential rates. And these are young companies. These are leaders and employees within our majority of our employees peer set. And they're backfilling those spaces just as fast as it's coming back on the market from some of these bigger companies. So I really think there's a balancing out of all that. And I think bigger companies have to do what the market is saying they need to do right now while they feel this out. But the reality is if you want people to come back into the office and they don't want to come back into the office, then those employees are going to get shed. They're going to get weeded out, and you're going to find the people that do want to be in the office, even if it's a few days a week. I think flexibility is a norm going forward. We've never told our employees you have to be in the office every day. And guess what? Almost 5 days a week, everybody is here at the office.
Interesting.
And I think they appreciate the fact that they have that ability to have flexibility, and they're not being told they have to be here. It's like growing up. You don't want to be told by your parents, you got to do this and do that. If you are expected to do it and you know that, then you're probably naturally inclined to want to do it more so. So I think that is really
not a sea change of office space, but an adjustment.
Right.
Yeah.
And I think the companies that are giving back the space right now are going to end up taking down that space in the future. And I think it's going to be sooner than later. Once we all get through this, what does hybrid work look like and how does it work for this company, and every company is going to be different. But I think flexibility is 100% the way of the future, and hybrid work models are going to be essential, but I don't think that the employees are going to control and dictate what that looks like.
Yeah. Allison Johnston Frizzo and Tanya Hart Little have been my guests on the show. They're both in Big D. They work for Hart Commercial in the commercial broker world. Tanya, thank you so much. I look forward to seeing you in a couple of weeks.
Absolutely, Cam. Thank you.
And Allison, how about how do people find you? Somebody says, hey, I want to talk to these two ladies about what they do. How can they find you, Allison?
Absolutely. Well, we are a commercial real estate brokerage firm. We specialize in leasing and tenant representation and investment sales. in office, retail, industrial, and medical properties. We actually aren't just exclusive to Dallas. We do work all over the country. So if there's ever the opportunity to help a company with their commercial real estate needs, we would love to help you. We're growing a great group of commercial real estate professionals that are really honing in on service and putting tenants first. And you can check us out at hart-cre.com. That's our website, and on social media at Hart Commercial. That's HART Commercial, and that is our handle.
HART-CRE.com is the website. Thank you, Allison. Thank you, Tanya.
Appreciate it. Thank you so much, Cam.
We'll be back after this break with segment 5. You're listening to What's Working. I'm Cam Marston, brought to you by the Alabama Center for Real Estate at the Culver House College of Business, University of Alabama.
This is Bill Wasden, labor and employment attorney at Burr & Foreman. With offices across Alabama, our attorneys are keenly aware of employment situations in a state with under 3% unemployment. Employers have faced many obstacles over the last 2 years, and new processes and policies must be in place to ensure you're setting clear expectations for your employees. We've created a list of the top 5 legal and operating issues facing employers in 2022 that will, ultimately, ensure your company is prepared for a data breach, the Great Resignation, new presidential executive orders, or potential overtime rule changes. Reach out to me at bwasden@burr.com, that's BURR.com, or my partner Katie Willis, kwillis@burr.com, for this information. Burr attorneys are here to help you with your labor and employment law needs.
No representation is made that the quality of the legal services to be performed is greater than the quality of legal services performed by other lawyers.
They say consistency is the key to success. They weren't wrong. So how about grabbing a beer that's consistently smooth, consistently refreshing, and consistently light? You might just find that the road to success can be pretty enjoyable. Michelob Ultra, the perfect balance of taste and refreshment, and only 2.6 carbs and 95 calories. It's only worth it if you enjoy it. Enjoy responsibly. Anheuser-Busch Michelob Ultra Light Beer, St. Louis, Missouri.
Hey, this is Billy Duran. I'm the president of Threaded Fasteners. And when I'm not down at the Nut House, I'm listening to What's Working with Cam Marston. Now back to the show.
Thank you, Tanya Hart Little, for your willingness and generosity in sharing that story. Thank you, Allison Johnston Frizzo, for yours as well. I really appreciate it. I think you too, ladies, have figured it out and are hopefully going to be a role model for those that are listening when it comes to the way that the workplace with the boomers and the millennials are working today. Essentially, the relationship for success, or the methodology, the structure for successful relationships in today's workplace, considering the work environment, et cetera, is it's got to flip. The senior got to support the junior. Historically, again, it's been the junior to the senior. This time around in our world today, the seniors support the junior. And I will see you both later in the week. I look forward to seeing you. Thank you again. That's it for us. Don't have a whole lot of time to close. Email me directly, please, cam@cammarston.com with show ideas. Find me on social media. You're listening to What's Working, brought to you by the Alabama Center for Real Estate. John Thompson is the show's producer at Ion Digital. Have a good week, everybody.